Hello, everyone. I'm Kevin Cruz. Welcome back to Culture Code. I am so excited because our guest today is the Chief People Officer of Turo, Lorie Boyd. So, Lorie, welcome. And where are you coming to the show from today?
Hi, Kevin. It's great to be here. I'm coming to you from my home here in Los Altos Hills, which is about 40 miles south of San Francisco, where we have our headquarters.
Perfect, near headquarters. So, welcome. Now, I travel a lot, so I'm familiar with your organization and with your company. But for those who aren't familiar with Turo, tell us a little bit about the company. What do you guys do? How big are you?
Excellent. Yeah, happy to share. So Turo, we were founded in 2009. So we are the world's largest peer-to-peer car sharing marketplace. And if folks don't exactly get what that is, the shorthand of it is basically the Airbnb of cars. We have this extraordinary selection, right, of amazing vehicles on our platform that you basically book from your neighbor down the road, a family in the town that you're landing in. So if you want a Maserati to go up to Napa this weekend to go wine tasting for your husband's birthday, or you need the big minivan to take, all of the cousins that are coming into town for Thanksgiving to Tahoe because you don't own a car that big, all different types of makes and models available to you to book. You get the car that you want for the adventure that you want, and the host makes money, right? The cars are pretty much sitting underutilized 95% of the time, and this is usually one of the most expensive assets that folks have aside from a house. So why not put that car to use to generate income for you? And so a lot of folks have found that this is a great side hustle, but some have also built it into an amazing business.
Yeah, Lord, what a concept. I love what you said there is for most of us, the cars, even if we have one car, it's not utilized, especially now that so many of us are working from home. And so to be able to make some money and let someone else use the car for a while is great. And you don't even know this, but so I'm outside Philadelphia. On Monday, I'm arriving into San Jose, California for a month. I've got an apartment there for business reasons. And I like this idea. I'm going to look into getting a Maserati and to drive up for a long weekend in wine country. And if I do that, I'll take a selfie in front of the Maserati and I'll let you know it was your idea.
Excellent. Well, and you can mix it up. You could have a Maserati one week, you can have a Jeep the next week, you could have a BMW the next week after that, and a Volkswagen the week after that. So it's whatever, you want that adventure to be. We've got a car for you. That's for sure.
Fantastic. So company culture is, you have a strong company culture, and every company though is unique. And a lot of times you just sort of know it when you see it. But I want you to try, like, how would you describe your company culture in a few words?
So I would say that, for us at Turo, we definitely have a lot of what companies, tout as their wonderful company culture, just as table stakes, right? It's a very collaborative group. It's a very down to earth and humble group of employees that we have. Very supportive, innovative, right? Always pushing the boundaries, wanting to make the product better, the experience better for our host and guests. But when it comes down to it, we went through this huge exercise of rethinking our values. We had a couple of core values that we had, and we just went through an exercise last year where we asked our employees, how would you describe our culture? Because we felt it was time to take another look at that. And we came out with four values. The four values are that we are grounded, we are expressive, we are bold, and we are driven. And so those company values we really always see as our North Star to help guide us in our decision making, in our day-to-day behaviors. We weave it in and out throughout the entire employee experience, from recruitment and talent acquisition through onboarding, through reward and recognition and performance. So our values are really, really core to who we are, and we feel like it's each one of our obligations and responsibilities to model them day in and day out in the workplace.
I love it that you went right to the employee base to get feedback and to reset the values. There's an old, I don't know who I heard it from, but they said, people will fight to protect the thing that they built themselves. And so for having these values come out of of your colleagues, I'm sure they're very passionate about them. And so that's maybe the first step for when you reset your culture, was to do the survey and to get that input. I'm curious, how are you sustaining these values and the culture? How are you bringing it to life, making sure people actually live them?
Right. So, I mean, part of that is, as I mentioned, during onboarding, all of our new hires. I actually deliver that session on culture at Turo, how we behave and how we treat one another. And so I walk through that portion with the new hires. So immediately right off the bat, they would have had some questions during their interview process about how they reflect our values, but we really instill them and make sure that they fully understand them during onboarding. But it's also things like when we have our company updates every 2 weeks, right? We're always mentioning the values in there. We have designed reward and recognition and are working on a new company-wide level award, if you will, that aligns with the values as well. So different ways for us to kind of weave it in and out. But I think, culture-wise, what we really love to do is we do gather every 6 months. We fly in all of our employees. So we currently have employees in 6 countries. We were 868 folks strong at the end of Q1. And we bring them in every 6 months so that we can gather together in person. And we either do that here in our San Francisco headquarters or at where we have an office in Phoenix, Arizona. And it's a week long of programming where the various leaders talk about what their teams have done, what they're looking forward to doing in the next 6 months. But again, culture and the values constantly woven throughout all of those presentations. And then, of course, in the evening, we have lots of team building activities, lots of fun.
That's great. I'm really curious about what you're doing to develop and support frontline managers, because Gallup and LeadX research suggest that about 70% of engagement is filtered through who our boss is. You join a company, you leave a bad boss, and there's large companies out there that have literally 100 people and $100 million to invest in programs. You're a smaller organization, tech company. So how do you support your frontline managers to be great leaders?
Right. You're absolutely right that the relationship that an employee has with their manager is the most important relationship in the company. And so we have been very, very clear. I would say even our CEO has gone as far, and I do all the time, to let people know that if you are a people manager, that is your number one job in the company. It isn't to deliver more quality software. It isn't to do better, marketing. It isn't to, make sure our accounting numbers are all tied up at the end of the month. It is that you are here to develop and support your people on your team. So we make that very, very clear to folks that how important their role is. Now, the way we support them is through a number of trainings. And so a lot of these were initially done by us in-house, but we are of the size and scale now where we are able to bring in, third-party folks. And so we have partnered with Life Labs to come in and do our Core Manager 1 training and our Core 2 training. And the Core 1 really focuses on coaching and how to provide feedback, how to ensure productivity, having effective one-on-one. So just those table stakes, again, the basics on management. But then the Core 2 really goes into strategic thinking, how, meeting mastery, like you're pulling all these people together, and let's make sure it's an effective meeting and we're getting accomplished what we want to, and how to lead your team through change. That's another area as well. So we do invest a lot in that, but we also, again, do a lot of our own trainings, whether we just had one yesterday, for example, on compensation conversations, because we do our salary benchmarking here in the summer. And so we want to make sure that all of our managers are equipped with not only just the knowledge of how we compensate at Turo, what our compensation philosophy is, how we level folks, what the budget looks like, all of that good stuff, but they need to feel skilled in being able to deliver the news to their employee about what their salary increase is for the year. And so we do types of preparation like that as well.
And Lorie, just so much good stuff in your answer. And just for our listeners, this is the first time. So I interview a lot of chief people officers, a lot of heads of leadership development. This is the first time anyone's proactively brought up that there's official training on meeting mastery, as you called it. And for our listeners, so again, LeadX, we've got 12, research is clear. There's 12 behaviors that drive employee engagement. And since COVID, we call it meeting efficiency, is like number 5. Like one of the biggest variables for employee engagement is now meetings. People don't want to waste their time in meetings. They don't want to be called to meetings that make no sense or wasted their time. And yet you ask so many companies, are you teaching your leaders how to facilitate productive, effective meetings? And very few of them are doing that. So that's great. And I'm sure a great contributor, to engagement. And pivoting now to employee engagement, employee experience, how are you gathering feedback? Are you doing engagement surveys or other quantitative things in addition to the when you bring everyone in-house?
Yes, exactly. So What I was very, very fortunate to have inherited here is a culture of engagement surveys where the leadership does, really care about what our employees have to say. So I was glad that I didn't have to convince our executive team when I landed here 5.5 years ago of the importance of this. So we do use Culture Amp for our engagement surveys. We survey our employees every 6 months. And it's so important. I think that the folks really need to understand it's one thing to survey your employees, but you actually have to take time to deliver the results to them and to show them what action you're going to take, because there's nothing worse than employees completing a survey and wondering what happened with that. Where did that information go? Did they hear me? And so we want to make very clear to our employees that, yes, we've heard you. So we take time, again, after each semi-annual survey, and this usually happens at our turbo week, I deliver those results. Here's what you all had to say. These were the things that were very much action items for us, and here's how we plan on tackling it. And we make very clear to our employees as well that some things we can change overnight. We hear you, and yes, I can go change that tomorrow. Some things take a while, and to ask for their patience. It isn't that it's falling on deaf ears, but some of these changes take a year, year and a half. To happen. And so we want to update them and let them know where we stand with respect to some of those action items, but we deliver the results as a company. And then we also ensure that our people leaders and department heads all share with their departments, because the way the engineering team is feeling may be different than what the marketing team is feeling versus the overall company. So we don't want to peanut butter the results. We want to really get in and understand what's working, what isn't, and to learn from those organizations that have high engagement scores. What are they doing over in that team that we can learn from and help support this other team who might be struggling in that area? So we're very excited. We have engagement. We have 88% participation in our surveys, and that is fairly consistent. And we're always scoring in the mid 80s now for overall engagement for the company. So I think our employees understand their opinions matter, and we hear them, and we will take action as quickly as we can. Sometimes it takes us a little bit longer, but we hear them.
Incredible engagement practices. Again, sort of unpacking a little bit for listeners. When we do survey work, the first number that jumps out to me is participation, right? So even before, everyone wants to look at the score. What's our score? What scale of 1 to 5, or what percent are engaged? I look at participation, because if it's low, it means either they just don't care. They don't even care enough to answer the survey. So they've already checked out. They're disengaged. Or they don't trust you. They don't believe that it's anonymous or whatever it is. And they're afraid it's going to blow back on them. So 88% is incredibly high. And I hope everyone heard the distinction you made. When you do engagement surveys, you definitely have to get back to people with the results. Otherwise, they'll get disengaged. Whoa, what a waste of time that was. But you don't have to solve every problem. People are realistic. They know they're not always going to get what they want. They understand things might take time. They understand there's limited resources. They just want to know they've been heard. So boy, if there's some quick wins, great. But otherwise, hey, Kevin, that's a good idea, but it's not going to make the short priority list now, and we're going to revisit it in 6 months. Okay, great. You read my comment. You heard my idea. It's being evaluated. That's all people ask for. So congratulations on these practices.
Thank you. Yes, we receive thousands of comments. So it's one thing for people to complete the survey, right? Just strongly agree, but we get thousands of comments each cycle that we run this. And those comments, each executive team member reads every single verbatim that are provided to us by our employees. So they know that we have heard them, and the entire leadership team has heard them. So that's, I think, what really is important. As you mentioned, some things we can get to pretty quickly. Sometimes we don't. And sometimes we are educated ourselves as leaders or as department heads of, wow, this seems like a gap in education, especially when it comes to human resources and our people ops team, of people, maybe asking for a certain benefit. And we're like, we actually do offer that benefit. I think we need to hit that a little harder in orientation, or maybe we need to do a lunch and learn to just remind people about all of the great things and resources that we have. So it's very enlightening sometimes to understand where the gaps in employee knowledge are.
Yeah, that's a great add to it. I remember once a very large company, they had horrible scores on learning and development, like career opportunities, career learning and development. And everyone said, there's no training, there's no opportunities. And all it took was sort of this 1 hour focus session in this large department to say, okay, well, we have tuition reimbursement. We have the online learning library. We have this live catalog. We offer job chat. And all of a sudden there was just this flip chart of, 24 things the next time they did the survey, that number was very high. They didn't change what they were doing. They just communicated it more clearly.
Right. Well, kind of on the flip side of that, again, when we were starting out as an organization, smaller organization that didn't have, as many financial resources, we did get that feedback from our employees of, I don't feel like Turo's really investing in my learning and development. And that just kind of blew my mind because, I'm a startup person. I've been at Salesforce early on. I was Zendesk early on, right? I'm used to these startup, high growth companies. And we don't always have the budget, but you're at these types of companies because this is exactly where you learn a lot. It's on the day to day. It isn't necessarily going to a professional conference that's going to boost your learning and development. It is the projects that you're able to tackle, the autonomy that you have to make decisions to have impact. That is where you really grow and stretch and build a career. And so what we did in response to that is we have a weekly update that we use via Lattice for a performance management platform, where you answer a couple questions each week. What did you work on last week? What are you focused on for the coming week? Any hurdles or challenges that I can help you with as your manager, or anything else I should know? And we added a fifth question. What did you learn this week? Because if you didn't learn something, that's probably an issue here. I learned how our marketing gets better ROI on, the SEO spend. I learned how the Toronto operations is tackling some of the trust and safety issues. I learned about how the financial accounting team is, preparing for the audit. You're always learning something. And so we put that question in there so that people specifically at the review cycle timeframe could go back and see that breadcrumb of trails of, look, you did actually learn quite a bit over the past 6 months. So sometimes it is providing the resources and reminding them of all these great tools and channels that we have for learning, but it's also you're learning here on the job.
Yeah, it's great. We use Slack here at LeadX. We're very small. We use Slack, and we have the automated questions. I'll add that one internally too. That's I love that practice. So you've mentioned, Lorie, so many cool things already. But is there any particular initiative or program that you're most proud of, or that you want to spotlight?
Well, so I think, when it comes to culture, again, our Turbo Week, and we do have, it's all the day-to-day things as well. We have Slack channels where people come together, and it's not just all work related, right? We come together as human beings, as people, because I believe that's where the foundation really starts. If we get along as people, then all the other challenges in building this business will, become a little bit easier to navigate. And so we have things like the Home and Garden channel where people are talking about plants, or music channel, or the Star Wars channel. We have a Corgi channel where we all put pictures of our dogs and things of that sort. And it's just really, really great fun way to build community. But aside from that, I think, in our Turbo Week that we hold semi-annually as well, one of the things that we did this past year when it comes to culture is we really empowered our leadership team here that are all of our directors and above. So director, senior director, VP, SVP, and the C-level. And we really wanted to engage them and really bring them at the forefront of people management in particular, because we realized that the 11 members of us in the C-suite, while we model the values day in, day out as much as we can't be in every place, in every location, and we can't be the sole cultural flag bearers within the company. And so we really wanted to empower the Director Plus folks to, feel like they are the ones also in this journey with us in leading their departments and how they figure out solutions on the product or within the work environment, that they need to also feel like strong cultural flag bearers as well. So it's this leadership team that we've pulled together, and we now hold on the week that we gather for Turbo Week, we carve out one day before where we only meet with the Directors Plus to not only talk about people and culture matters, but also product initiatives, financial, targets that we're looking at to really make sure that they are fully well versed in the business and in the people and the culture so that they can continue to message, to their own teams.
That's a big investment of time, and shows the importance, tells everyone the importance of the culture work. This is, as you know, Lorie, a short format podcast. We only have a few minutes left, but I'm curious if you could send a book to every one of your colleagues and it was guaranteed that they would read it. What book might that be?
Yeah, so the one that I read just fairly recently was this book called The Art of Gathering, How We Meet and Why It Matters. And this is by Priya Parker. And I was coming to this, I'm so happy I found this book because we had just come off of the whole COVID, working remotely for about 2 years. And now we had always been an in-office culture. And our employees, we heard very loud and clear from them, they loved the flexibility of being able to work from home, and they did not want to be forced to work back in the office, even though we had flexibility in the past, right? You weren't going to your desk 5 days a week, anything like that. And so, I really felt that from her book, it really helped me message to our employees why it is important to gather in person. Again, we have flexible. If people want to work fully remotely, that's totally fine. But, the fact that, we gather to celebrate, we gather to question, right? There's just something very different from being in person versus being remote and on Zooms and everybody being in little boxes. So I felt like that book just gave me a lot of really great ideas on how to structure gatherings instead of the way we've done it in the past, to really make sure we have moments that matter and are meaningful, that are worthy, as we discussed earlier, worthy of people's time. So I felt that was a great resource for me.
And where has Turo landed now? Like, is it a remote first, or have you gone hybrid? What's the expectation?
So we landed in that we're pretty much hybrid. If folks, and we left this up to our leaders. We didn't want this to be a mandate from our CEO or from the people operations team. We wanted each business leader to figure out what works best for them and their teams. And there are some roles that can be fully remote, and there are some that require being in office. And so we left that up to the leaders. So it's a hybrid.
Yeah, yeah. So this is kind of a fun one. Imagine if I gave you a magic wand, you could wave it around, and suddenly all your colleagues got a little bit better at one particular skill or behavior. Which one would you pick for them?
Let's see. I have to think that the one that I think folks could work on more here at Turo is the area of self-care. Just, we give so much to try and produce, again, a quality product, a quality experience for when you book that car, for our guests and for our hosts, that, this is a great income generating platform for them. We give so much to our employees. We give so much to our spouses, our children, our dogs, that I just don't know that we always give enough time to ourselves. And so what we actually invested in, this is another cool kind of culture initiative, is we partnered with this group called Positive Intelligence this year, and we made a significant financial investment to offer this program for every single one of our employees who wanted to partake in it. And we're glad that we've had hundreds already do it. And basically what it is a lot of reflection about, you go through this exercise of what are your saboteurs? What are these voices, these negative voices kind of going on and, kind of keeping you from being your best self and having better relationships, not just at home, but at work. And so we've received rave reviews about this for employees. And so what I encourage them to do through this process is to be selfish, to take the time to invest in yourself. And so I think that's the big headline: invest in yourself, whether that's the self-care or the learning and development, because we do now provide a stipend of $2,000 per year for each employee to go and do coursework that isn't just on the job learning. But be selfish, invest in yourself, take care of yourself, sleep, right? We're all built these high growth companies. We need to sleep a little bit more, even though there's a lot on our plate. So I think it's the self-care, be selfish.
That's great. Final question. So what is exciting you the most about Turo right now?
For me, it's our growth, the growth trajectory. I mean, last year, we more than doubled the size of the company, went from 400 and some to 800 plus employees. So that was really incredible. And so it's not just the growth, but how do we scale culture as we grow? And so the big mantra for us this past year has been, how do we stay small while growing big? We love our culture. We love the relationships we have. We love being lean and nimble. And we don't want to become a bloated, bureaucratic, inflexible organization or culture. And so we as leaders are all keeping that top of mind of how do we stay small while we grow big. So that's my, greatest thing that I'm looking forward to, is to seeing how the culture that we've had that is so special to us, how do we maintain that? It has to evolve. By nature, it does. With each new employee that we bring on board, it's a dynamic group, right? And so it will change, but how do we stick to our core of who we are as we continue to grow big?
What an exciting challenge. And you obviously have a great foundation, to build on, and have a lot more in place than most organizations your size, I think. So congratulations on all of that success. And thanks for spending some time on a Friday afternoon with us.
Thanks, Kevin. It was a pleasure.